Welcome to the Mojo for Musicians podcast from Manny Cabo Media, where we dig deep into today's top strategies to help you take your music career to the next level, along with real, raw, and uplifting conversations with industry professionals that are making moves, making a difference, and making the best versions of themselves to inspire you to do the same. And for all of our Mojo maniacs out there, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you like what you hear, please be sure to give us a positive review on your favorite listening platform. Support for the Mojo for Musicians podcast comes from Stedman, tools for the studio and beyond, because your voice deserves to be heard. Sennheiser, inspired by music. And Cranium, scientifically designed products for bald, shaved, and buzzed heads. So get your head in the game and own your dome. And now, here's your host, Manny Cabo. All right, Mojo Maniacs, welcome back to another Mojo-filled episode with yours truly. And believe me, I've got another great one today, especially for all you singer aficionados looking to, expand your vocal endurance, understanding, range, you name it. And as always, a big shout out to my sponsors at Stedman and Sennheiser and Cranium for making these shows possible. And of course, you guys out there listening and downloading and rating and reviewing the show, keeping it in the top percentile of the best music podcasts in the world. So thank you. But now today's guest, right? Now she's created an amazing career for herself, by helping artists look and sound and feel like natural performers. And take it from me, these are three qualities, guys, that are imperative for any artist to make an impact in this industry. So let's bring her on, the vocal coach, and I quote, who will help you go from the shy singer to the authentic artist. Let's welcome Lara Chapman to the show. What's up, Lara? How are you?
Hey. Thank you so much for having me.
No.
I appreciate it. I'm doing well. Cannot complain.
And you know what? Who's going to listen anyway, right? So might as well just do the best job that you possibly can, right? Just show up.
For sure.
Even when
Absolutely.
you don't want to. But all kidding aside, it
but
is
I
an
do
honor.
want to show up.
Right.
Come on.
Well, you have to. This is a very important show. I don't know if you know that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, I
Listen,
do. It's the most important show.
Right. It's the most important show for the next half hour, right? But it is so good to have you here. It's so refreshing. Listen, I've been trolling your threads, of course, and as I alluded to even before I hit record on this, such great content. And again, I may be a little biased, right, because I am a singer. So I love to focus on things that will help we vocalists globally get to that next level. And I love the fact, I'm going to jump right into this because I can't wait to get to these questions. So I love the fact that you focus on the importance of making a connection with your audience, right, through your music. But more importantly, as we discussed also, is through your authenticity. Now, this has been one of my favorite, let's just say, go-to words, right, over the years, because in my opinion, it's the easiest thing not only sell, but to deliver to your audience because it's you. However, here's the caveat, and I would love to hear your stance on this, Lara, that it is sometimes very difficult for us to just do that, to embrace who we really are, because we feel that we have to hide behind this facade of what social media dictates and the critics dictate, and the whole perception is reality, which is nonsense to me. So talk to me about that.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good point. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, maybe, I got a comment under one of my videos and it was like, I wish A&Rs would understand this. And I'm because I was talking about, be yourself,
Right.
just make sure that, whatever it is you're putting out there is authentically and truly you, and you're not trying to copy someone else. Make sure that the songs fit your voice and you're not trying to push your voice to do something and be something it's not, kind of that whole talk, right? And this person commented, I wish A&Rs would understand this as well. And I'm like, but they do, right? If you are not authentically yourself, and let's say, you're a share type singer, you have a really low voice, but you're singing Ariana Grande songs, that A&R is going to dismiss you because they know
Of course.
that it's just not that great.
Right. Right.
It's good. By no means is it bad. I mean, maybe, but hopefully not.
Right.
But
It's not on that level. I mean,
exactly. It's just that extra step is missing. And that's something that I was struggling with for the longest time. I always wanted to belt off my face and sing like Christina Aguilera.
Right
And
here.
yeah,
Me.
there you
You're
go.
looking at
You
a
as
culprit.
well.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Because, that's what I heard on the radio when I grew up, right? Like it was
Sure.
Beyonce, it was Christina Aguilera, it was, all these big, big, big voices. So in my mind, I was like, all right, if I want to be famous, just like these people, this is what I got to do. And so I forced my voice to do that. And
Sure.
it took me more than 10 years to realize that ain't me. I'm an alto, okay? I got to embrace my low notes a little bit more and not force my voice to go higher and higher and higher.
Right.
I'm not saying you can't, but there's always going to be this little gap, like this extra little, that next step that's missing
Right.
when you force your voice to be something that it's not. Or even when you force yourself to be something that you're not. You
100%.
pretend like you care about these and these and these rights and these and these and these issues when in fact you don't really. Like you're not opposed to it, but it's also not like you're insanely passionate about it.
Sure.
Right. And so it's just always, there's always going to be this disconnect when you're pretending and when you're not truly yourself. And as long as there is this disconnect between you and your art, then your audience is going to struggle to connect with you.
Right. They're
as
just
well.
not going to get it. You give them that whole scratch your
Yeah.
head. And that's a very valid point, because it's like if you're a person who's always telling lies, it is so difficult to keep up with the lies, right? And then it'll catch up to you. Believe me, it will catch up. And what happens at that point, which is even worse, aside from your career, is your integrity. So once people start questioning your integrity on your word, so that means that's just a direct connection of who you are as an artist. Well, this person is pretending to be someone they're entirely not. And I've seen it all too well, not from just the musical side, but my background is also in editorial photography. So when I'm putting together a visual campaign and I'm listening to their music, and say, for example, it's a country artist and they want to go the edgy, hardcore rock, I'm like, wait a second, there's a little imbalance here visually. And the same thing is transferable to their style of music as well. So that's a very valid point.
Yeah, and I was struggling with this myself when I was an artist and I was putting out my own original music. I was working with a couple people and they wanted me to dress a certain way, like
exactly.
combat boots and big pants that come like all the way up to the waist and then really itty bitty crop tops. And I'm like, that's great and all, but that's not really
Right.
what
It's also a
I
cliche, but I
do.
get it, right?
Yeah, right. And
Right.
so I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like I make top 40s like pop music, so I understand that you want me to look that like fit that mold, but I'm sorry, that's not me. And so every single day, they would message me and be like, Lara, what are you going to post today on Instagram?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't fucking know, because
Yeah.
nothing feels authentic. I don't know what
And it's
to
sad
do.
too, not to cut you off, but it's almost like an automatic for them. It's like a cookie cutter template.
Yeah.
That shit's getting old already, man.
It really is.
Right.
And I feel like it's really changing. Like these past couple years, because of platforms like Instagram and TikTok, there's no more star makers, if we
Right.
want to call them that, right?
There's
And
not.
so
Rick Barker
yeah, and-
says that all the time. He's like, there are no
Yes,
star
I
makers.
love
Right.
it.
Ricky's
I
great. He's
love
been
it.
on the show and he talks about that all the time. You guys got to do the work. I'm sorry, but nobody's going to make a
Yes.
career for you anymore.
Yep,
You have to have your shit
exactly.
together. You have to have your vanity metrics together. Of course, they want you to do all the work, but that proves a point that you actually take pride in your career.
Yeah.
But again, it gives you the opportunity to be who you are. And if they like you for who you are, why would they change? Why reinvent
Yeah.
the wheel? Which is so important that we learn to love ourselves and embrace our true selves.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be tough for, the younger audience or like the younger artist,
Right.
like they might not really know yet who exactly
Right.
they are. They have all these influences and they're like, I
Sure.
want to be this and that and there. And they're so contradicted. And they're like, I want to do all of it. And I just want someone to tell me what to do or someone to kind of like narrow it down for me, some sort of guidance. And I'm like, that is just like not really a thing anymore,
Yeah.
but you're going to get there. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just, explore all these different things that you like. And the more you do it, the more you're going to figure out, oh, this is what I'm really passionate about.
I completely agree.
So-
I couldn't agree with you more. And segue into this next question, like I've noticed, and I love your social media thread. Of course, I've been trolling it for weeks now. And there's one thing, it really does, all kidding aside, I really have, because, I love to learn. That's one good thing, and I'm not going to really talk too much about this. We'll get into it, ironically enough, in the next question about egos. I love learning from everyone. When I was on The Voice, I was such a sponge. because it's a very humbling show. It was just like living in Nashville. The talent is just everywhere, it's crawling everywhere. So I learned to embrace adopting and listening and acquiring, and more importantly, appreciating other people's talent. And what I love about your content, it's how simplistic and yet direct, and how you convolute complexities of singing into something that's very, very intuitive and easily understandable and relatable. And I'll give you an example. Like, for example, you talk about finding your true voice, right? And it's somewhat funny to me because as a singer and potential singers out there, they say to me all the time, like, dude, I'm just trying, or dudettes, right? I'm trying to find my own voice. And I'm like, guys, you already have a voice. You're using it as you speak. The key is to write your own music, your melodies and so forth, your harmonies, your lyrics, embellishing on that. Instead of, and this is to your point, instead of embellishing on what we call, or you call more specifically, the money notes, right? What does that mean? Like, we put so much, and I raise my hand, okay, because I'm a culprit, and I know we all have been. We put unnecessary pressure in trying to overpower notes. I need to sing this part higher and better than the original song, which sometimes, and I dare say in most cases, sets us up for disappointment or worse, failure, right? Talk about that in your journeys with students and your perspective, because I'm sure, and you just mentioned it, alluded to it, so I know you get that. Talk to me about those experiences.
Yeah, I mean, the number one question I get from potential students or
Right.
students is always like, I'm struggling with high notes. Can you teach me how to sing high? And I'm like, no. Like, yeah, I can.
Get
but,
out.
Like,
Just get out.
or like on my YouTube channel, the amount of people that comment under my videos and are like, can you make a video about whistle notes? I'm like, fuck no. Like, no. We don't need another Mariah Carey
Right.
and another Ariana Grande.
Right.
Like, no. It's just like, it's so frustrating to me. Like, I understand because I've been there myself. Like I said in the beginning, like, I wanted to be known as a belter, right? So I pushed my voice to belt, and sing high. So I get it. I made exactly that same mistake. And so that's why, to me, now as a coach, after having made all of these mistakes and wasted years, it's so important to me to obviously listen to what the student wants,
Right.
but then show them how what you want does not matter. Here is what matters, so let's work on this instead, right? And I call this nature versus nurture. Nature is the voice that you were given at birth, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's just what you naturally do best. And that's where, you said in the beginning, I help people look, sound, and feel like a natural performer. That's where the natural part comes in. It's what you naturally do best. And then we have the nurture part, which is your idols, right? The music that you've been listening to,
of course,
the influences that you've had. Exactly, right? So that is the nurture part. And that makes you sometimes want to kind of like steer away from your nature part, what you naturally do best.
And that's so easy to do, right? Let's focus on that for a second. It's so easily to get influenced. Like, I absolutely love. Now, I'm Hispanic, but I have so many Latin influences, rock influences, R&B, Marvin Gaye. I've been really focusing on Chris Stapleton, and this is to your point, actually. When you listen to him sing, it's so effortless. His runs, his turns, his power, when he hits these notes, it's so raspy. It's almost like he covers the entire spectrum to the point where I don't even want to sing anymore. Like, you can't even compete with that, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it serves its purpose. It makes me a better singer if I just adopt and sprinkle some of the things that I've acquired from listening to him and his presentation in my music, right?
Absolutely. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly
like,
my point, right?
It's not like you're going to start like figuring out something completely new that no one has ever done before.
Right.
No, like, your authentic self is the combination of all these things that have influenced you and the nurture part.
Exactly.
The nature part, right? What you were given at birth. And that's the part a lot of singers forget about, right? They have all the influences, but then they forget about what they really are and what their voice is. And so that's why I'm trying to bring so much attention to the nature part. And I call it your prima voce. It's the sweet spot of your voice. Where does your voice sit, right? Where does it sound and feel the best? I mean, there's a reason why Chris Stapleton sounds effortless because it's his prima voce. It's
Exactly.
what he does best, right?
He's
And
in
it's
his
that
comfort zone. Like he's in it
he
all the time. He
is.
doesn't have to
Yes.
extricate. And if he does get to that next level, and I know based on your nodding, for those of you who are going to eventually watch this, when he does embellish on certain notes, you notice that it's not running rampant through the whole song. Like people hear it like, whoa, I was not expecting that, because he knows there's a perfect timing of when to deliver a certain aha moment. Like when I was on The Voice and people play that audition back, that last note that I hit, sure, I'd like to sing it like David Coverdale, full blown out chest voice, mix it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make it as effortless as possible for me. I went chest and all falsetto. Here I go, and let the mic do the work. Nobody knows the difference,
Oh my
and the
God.
note is still there. It's the note. So I learned that myself. Deborah Bird, who was my coach, and she coached Daughtry and, oh my God, so many other incredible artists, David Cook. And she's like, it's an illusion. And that's exactly what you're saying. When people over-embellish things, the ear is not the same as your brain understanding what the voice has to do to execute that note. As long as you hit the note exactly, the tonality, right? You've got to be in key. But
Yes,
utilize it
please.
and implement it in your own voice, within your own octave range. Like we're so grown to think, right? We're groomed to think that it's got to be the same way it always was. That's the way they did it. That's the only way to do it. If you want to get the same results, you got to repeat that. No, you
No,
change the key
absolutely.
structure of the song. Kelly Clarkson, another incredible artist, she does that all the time. She's like, I'm not going to have my best days. I'm not going to be able to hit my best notes on every single concert. So what? Some of my fans they'll expect that note, but I can't. I'm human. So I just drop it down 2-3 keys, and guess what? Nobody ever notices it. Like we get in our
No
own
one
heads, right?
notices. Yeah, and it's so weird. It's really your vocal ego
Yeah.
that like keeps you
Bingo.
from not changing the key of a song. And I'm like, you're literally doing yourself a disservice. I
Right.
feel like our responsibility as performers is to deliver the best possible performance that we can.
I agree.
And that usually means you need to adjust the key. Like the reason why the original key is the original key because it sounds the best in the original artist's voice,
Right.
not because that is objectively the best
Right.
key for the
You
song.
cannot change the key of this song. How dare you?
Yes.
You
Or
know?
even just beyond like changing the key. It's also opting out of like just changing certain notes, right? Like
Yeah.
if Kelly Clarkson is hitting an insanely high note at the end, doesn't mean you also need to do that. You
Yeah.
could do something else, right? So just
Because
making it
there's
your
a
own and
certain
making it
shock
fit
factor.
your voice.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool. Like I personally, that's why what's his face, Simon Cowell, was so taken back. And I love Simon. I don't care what people say about him. He's brilliant. The way he analyzes the song, he's like, that song at the end, what you did was brilliant. We were expecting your voice to go here, and then you went down there. It's that wow factor, right? You did something
Yeah.
totally off the cuff, and now you're giving other people ideas. Like I never would have thought about that. So that's why
Yep.
why we limit ourselves. It sucks
Yeah.
because I do it myself.
Well, I totally understand. Trust me, been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Right?
I so get it. But it is that element of surprise that is like, this like it
Bingo.
pulls the listener in,
Bingo.
right? It's like, ooh, what else is she gonna
Right.
do? Or what else is he gonna do? What's gonna happen next, right? Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how we create our own brands. Like then we realize, oh my God, I think I just came up with my signature voice. That's my thing. That's my go-to thing now
Yeah.
by experimenting, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I've got a two-part question for you right now. This is really important for me anyway, because you sprinkle this all over your teachings, right? With respect to the difference between a singer and an artist, right? So many musicians out there, I think they confuse these two or fail to separate the two, which in most cases takes away, which we were just talking about, their delivery of the performance, right? And talk about that. And the second part of this question is talk to me about some of your biggest hurdles, like starting out. What did you do to combat those hurdles? Because as a teacher, you become a teacher because you've made so many mistakes. And that's the luxury of becoming an educator, because had you not made those mistakes, you don't have the right to become a teacher because you've never gone through those circumstances, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've learned that from so many teachers that I've had. That like, listen, the reason why I'm telling you not to do it because I'm telling you right now it doesn't work. I've done it way
Yeah.
before you a million times, and I've sold out arenas. I've done this and that. It just doesn't work. You want to try it, go for it, and come back. Just don't waste my time, right? So talk
Yep.
to me about your hurdles,
That is just so funny that you
right?
mentioned that because you know how like some people out there say like those who can't do teach,
Right.
and I'm like, no, it's those who have done that
Exactly.
teach.
You're missing the whole point, guys. No, I've
You're
done it. It
missing
just
the whole
didn't work.
point. Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
man enough to say it doesn't, it didn't work. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so let me go back to the first half
Yeah.
of that question.
Mhm.
What is a singer and how is an artist different from a singer?
Right.
And so when I talk about it is I usually look at it from the vocal perspective.
Mm.
How is a singer different from an artist or vice versa? Obviously, there's other aspects to that as well. So, for example, an artist, if we don't look at the vocal aspects, an artist also writes songs. They might be able to, accompany themselves on piano or guitar. They understand branding. They understand social media. Like all of those more business
All the
things
components,
as well.
exactly. The business
All
side
the
of it, right?
components, exactly. So a singer doesn't necessarily do any of that. An artist does. They have to write songs. I don't care what you say or what you hear other people say. If you want to have a career in today's music industry, you have to be able to write songs, period. Sorry. I have a very strong opinion on that.
Well,
Because
listen, I'm not going to disagree with you. I've had to learn how to
so
write
true.
songs. Listen, I don't play guitar. I was a drummer for
Mhm.
years, but I learned how to dabble with some chords. And it's surprising. You don't need much. You understand 6 specific chords. You
No.
could write an entire library of songs on
Oh my
just 3 chords.
gosh, like even if it's just top lining, right?
Right.
Even if you just write the melody and the lyrics and you're
Sure.
writing to a produced track, like even that, you need to understand the basics of songwriting. I'm not saying you need to be like able to write a whole album by yourself. Like no, you're going to have co-writers who help
Of
you, but you
course.
at least need to be in the room and understand what is happening
And
and
by
how
the
to
way,
contribute
I
to it.
encourage collaborations. That's a
Oh yeah.
huge, that's a big win for me. But go ahead. I didn't
Oh,
want to interject. I just
100%.
thought you mentioned something very, very important. That's another side of the ego that many
Yes.
artists need to let go, collaborate, learn stuff from other writers. But go ahead.
Yep. 100%. So vocally, the difference between a singer
Mm,
and an artist is a singer is very focused on the notes
mm.
that they are singing. They want to hit money notes, right? They want to go
Of
higher,
course.
higher, higher, beltier, 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 louder, 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 all of those things. They're really focused on the notes. And that usually then means they're very much in their heads, right? If they go and perform, they're worried about what am I supposed to do with my arms? Or they're worried about like, oh my gosh, here comes the high note. I hope I won't crack. Or,
Right,
oh
right.
my God, what's the next lyric, right?
Can I raise
All
my
of
hand on
those
this one as
thoughts.
well? I mean, I've done it.
Oh, same. I mean, I've had all of those issues
Yeah, for those of
in
you
the
out there
past. So,
listening, guys, we've all been there. So, you
oh
don't be
yeah.
afraid to raise your hand on this one and be like, yeah, I've done that. Just
Oh,
own it.
100%.
Own it. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And then like figure out what can I do to not do those things anymore,
Right.
right? And that is transform yourself in an artist. An artist doesn't care about what notes they're singing. They care about how they are singing those notes, right? Are they singing it in their own voice? Are they singing it in the right key, right? Like going back to what we talked about before.
Right.
Are you adjusting the key? Are you, singing it with your most authentic, true signature voice, whatever you want to call it? And also, what are you talking about in the song that you're singing? Like the voice is unique as an instrument in the sense that we're the only, like the voice is the only instrument that has lyrics to help us express ourselves.
Right.
No other instrument has that. So, like, be mindful of what you're saying.
Sure.
Like,
The
it
believability
matters.
too. It's how at that point, I think you have to cross those boundaries and become an actor as well. Like, are your
Yes,
lines
absolutely.
believable? Are your fans and your followers and your audience, most importantly, are they
Mhm.
leaning into every word?
Yeah,
And
and you have to
go
be
ahead.
a good actor,
Yeah.
right? So like there's like I don't want you to be the kind of actor that's like really showy, like, oh, like today I was eating
Broadway.
cereal for
Right.
breakfast. Like, no, 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 no. Like an authentic, truthful actor, meaning like you are very much in touch with yourself
Mm,
and you have a story behind the song that works for you. It doesn't matter what the writer or the original singer was thinking about when they sang that song. What do you think about? What's your story behind this
exactly.
song? Can you put yourself into that situation and channel that when you are performing or when you are in the recording studio to convey that emotion? Because I always say your audience can't feel anything you yourself are not feeling. They can only feel what
I
you're
agree.
feeling.
I agree.
So that I learned this in acting school. Actually, I got a diploma like right out of high school from the New York Film Academy, where I was studying acting for film and TV and musical theater. And before that, I was never really worried about what I was singing about because I was like, I just want to belt my face off, and that's all I care
I
about.
want to melt some faces, man. That's all I care about, dude.
Yeah.
I get it. I completely get it.
Yep. So I learned that there and I was like, oh, wow, that is very, very, very
Right.
powerful. So that's the difference vocally between a singer and an artist. And once you are truly in the story and you're not forcing your voice and yourself to be something and someone you are not, then that's when magic happens.
That's that
right?
sweet spot. And I think it's very important to note that the differentiation is pretty clear cut, but I think you need to adopt both schools of thought and then just learn how to merge those to be acutely aware of how you're singing the song, be acutely aware of how you're presenting the song. Yes, of course, worry about the key, but more importantly, worry about what key is best for your voice so you could deliver that note as best as possible. Great point. And I told you
Because
this
at the end of the day, you still need to sound good, right?
Sure.
Like, I'm not saying vocal technique is not important and you should never work on expanding your range and doing all these other things. Like, absolutely. Like, please, it's important that, you know, if this is your job, if this is what you want to be your craft, then it's your job to get better and better and better, right?
So, well, you mentioned, and there was another thread that I saw, one of your reels, which I absolutely love, and you just brought that to my mind, is the difference between a practice song and a performance song, which incorporates what you're saying. You want to crush your voice. You want to make sure that after you're done, you need vocal rest for like 2 days. There's your practice song. That's where you make mistakes, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And then there's a performance song where it's not that you're playing it safe. You're crushing this song, right? Whether you're singing it here, falsetto, but you're crushing every note. Think of Billie Eilish. She's not a belter. She's very flowery, but every note is on point. The way she delivers her drag and sustaining notes is on point. There's so many different ways to be exact. So I needed to address that because it's so great that you talked about practice songs versus performance songs, which is what we did on The Voice and La Voz. That's why they tell you,
really?
what are you comfortable singing? And they tell you, that song is not for you. I would not sing that song. You need to pick songs, which ironically enough is a great segue. We could have a whole show on picking songs for TV shows, which I have mastered. And certain songs you pick for ego, but certain songs you pick to display the dynamics and the range of your voice, which is exactly what you want to do on TV. And going back to what you were saying, most singers go into these competitions and their headspace is so like, I need to be like up here in every note and sing it in the key of W, you know, instead of like really like, well, how do I sing this song so it's really believable to me? Like, can I put myself in a situation that I've been through so I can deliver a real believable performance? That's the headspace, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, 100%. 100%. You nailed it. And that's how you're going to give your audience or the judges on a show goosebumps, right? That's how you bring them to tears. It's when the magic happens, right? It's really when the magic happens.
Absolutely.
And to me, that is the difference between a singer and an artist, right?
I love it.
Like when you can reach those people. And so the hurdles that we were talking about before. So like I said, I was trying to be a belter and just higher, 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 louder, 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 all those things for more than a decade. And I actually I realized that that's not what it is about by accident. So after I finished my program.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yep, happened by accident. So after I finished my program at the New York Film Academy, I went to the Berklee College of Music in Boston. And there I was, one of my classes was pop, rock, and country singing. And every week we needed to sing a new song from a different genre. One week it was Americana/folk music. And I'm like, I'm Swiss. I don't know any of this stuff.
That's great.
So I asked my coach or like the teacher, I asked her like, do you have just like a couple artists that you could recommend? Because I ain't got a clue what I'm supposed to do here. So she recommended a couple people and I ended up picking The Story by Brandi Carlile because you belt your face off in that song, right? So
obviously.
Of course I was going to pick that song.
And she's a great vocalist too. Like she's so underrated.
God.
But go ahead.
Oh, so good. So, anyways, I sang that song, but besides those crazy high notes and like belty high notes, it also has some really juicy low
Mm.
notes in the beginning. And I was singing that song, and my entire class and the teacher, they were like, what just happened? Where did these low notes come from? We had no idea that you have these juicy ass low notes. Why have you
Love
never
it.
done any of this? And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
I don't
I did
know.
not know that that was something that
Exactly.
people would enjoy. I knew I could do it, but I thought I needed to be this other thing to see success. And that's when everything
Exactly.
changed because at that exact same time, I was auditioning for a manager in Nashville. And I sent him the song You Lost Me by Christina Aguilera. And I didn't hear back from him for a week. And I was like, well, I guess that's a no because before he was very communicative, right? And so we were
Mm.
doing that song, that Brandy Carlisle, the story song, in class that same week. And we were doing like a sound check. And so we were filming everything. And so I was like, okay, well, I have nothing left to lose. So I'm just going to go ahead and send him the sound check video to see, if maybe he likes that because I have nothing to lose, right? And I kid you not, within 2 hours, he called me and was like, oh my God, Lara, what on earth? This is amazing. Like, why did you send me this Christina
Why am I not
song?
notified about these things, Laura? Huh?
Yeah, so
You
he
should have
was
led with that, Laura. You should have
yes.
led with that. Right.
Exactly, exactly. And so he was like, come down to Nashville and we'll sign the contract. And I was like, oh my God, for 10 years plus, 10 plus years, I was
That's
forcing my
great.
voice to do this while I was actually supposed to do this whole other thing where I get that wow effect from people. And I remembered, but
Mm.
before I started taking voice lessons, it was just before I turned 13. I did not know how to access my head voice at all. And I could only sing low. And I was like, well, if that is not a full circle kind of moment, I don't know what is.
Right? It's like
Yep.
a smack in the face. It's almost like it was there on purpose. Like it prevented you from escalating the gradual nature of power in your voice and kept you there on purpose. No, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
Embrace this, will you? Because later on, you're going to be able to embellish as much as you want. Just don't forget this
Yes,
part and quality of your voice, Laura.
exactly. So that was kind of like the biggest, like, wow, okay, this is
Right.
insane. And so I'm not saying I wasted 10 years. I needed to go through that. I needed to learn that.
Of
At 13 years
course.
old, you could not have convinced me that this is what I need to do because I was
Right.
very strong minded and I was like, nope, this is what I hear on the radio. So that's what I need to do. So I wasn't ready to hear that. Back then, like in college, then I was ready to hear that. And that's when everything
Yeah.
changed.
Well, you got to grace that. You got to be grateful because at that age, going through so many uh, different
Yeah.
circumstances that were addressing your own personal hardships that you didn't realize. It showed you how much you got into your own head. It showed you your capacity, but more importantly, because you showed up, because you did the reps, it's not that you failed. It was a
Absolutely.
learning experience. And most singers don't have those experiences until later
Mhm.
on in their career. And you actually jumpstart your career without realizing it. So kudos to you. And not only for doing the work, but to also realizing that, wait a second, I have something here. Even if it was
Mhm.
by accident, you gave yourself the space to encounter that moment where you're like, wow, I actually have something here. I didn't even realize it. But had you have not put in the work or done the reps or inquired or even experimented with your voice, which I encourage everybody to do, don't
Yeah.
limit yourselves, you never would have come across the whole ideology that, wow, there is another layer to my voice that I had no idea that I would actually be able to be
Exactly.
recognized for. Because of your expectations, thinking that everyone else needs to hear this, what I alluded to in my first portion
Yeah,
of the interview.
100%. And that's why I'm so passionate now to help people to like find their nature part, right? Find their prima voce, find their comfort
Yeah.
zone, find their sweet spot, whatever it is you want to call it. That's why this
Yeah.
is so important to me because it literally makes all the difference, right? Before I was seeing some success, but then I never quite pulled through. I actually auditioned for The Voice back in Switzerland when I was in high school, and I made it through a couple
Oh,
rounds,
wow.
but right before the blind auditions, I got cut. And so, like I was always
Mm.
seeing like some success. I got into Berkeley, but I didn't get into the big productions that they were putting on at the school. It was because I was just not
Yeah.
doing what I needed to do, what was me, right?
Exactly.
And so once that clicked, literally everything changed. I got a management deal. I released my own record. I heard my songs on the radio. I played tons of paid shows. I did interviews for magazines and blog posts. Like I did it all, right? And so that is why this is so, so, so important. And that's why I try my best to focus on
Yeah.
that part of the voice as much as possible, because there's so many other vocal coaches out there who are like, do this exercise for head voice and do this exercise for belting. And I'm like,
Mm.
I still have some of those too, because I really like my pop song exercises. They're so much fun to do. So I still
Right,
have
right,
that
right.
in there as well. But that's not all I do, because if we just focus on that, then you're going to be a singer and you're going to be in your head about everything you do. But I want to create artists so
Sure.
that you can see success.
Well, I'll give you a little quick story and then I'll get into the last question, which is the signature question. You're going to be able to answer it because, and I already
Okay.
know how you're going to answer it, but this is like an extension of what you were saying in my personal story when I was both on The Voice and Levels. Like I couldn't stand those shows. I didn't even want to go on. I was pushed by my friends to go on. I even took it to the point where when the producers asked me, what do you love about these shows? Like, why do you want to be on? I said, I don't like these shows. I don't want to be here. But if I don't, I got two guys in the back that are going to kick my ass if I don't follow through with this. And they all looked at each other like, okay. And I'm like, listen, I love to sing, but I'm going to give you me. I'm not going to go in and pretend to be like Julio Iglesias or, Chris Cornell. I'm just going to do Manny. And I went in there, and this goes to show you when you go into something and not worry about the end result of what you think, right, the outcome should look like, and just do you. That's when you start reaping the rewards. Because I got on that show. Obviously, I wasn't the best singer because there is no best singer. I just did the best voice that I knew how to do. I embraced that. And as you can see, I got a 4-chair turn, and that's not the boast. That's just to prove my point. I wasn't worried about what was going to happen. I was worried about living in the moment, having some fun, becoming a sponge and learning from everybody there. And then when it came time for showtime, I'm like, you know what? I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to have fun, incorporate the things that I learned prior to this performance, and just stay in my lane. And when I need to embellish a little bit, pick those strategic points and just make sure I nail them, especially, and I learned this from Deborah Bird as well, and I know you're going to agree, you have to nail that first note because it's so difficult to recover from that first note. So that's one thing that always stuck with me, the little things. But again, becoming your authentic self, and don't worry about being someone that you're not. Vocally, from a personality standpoint, whatever the case may be, and I love it.
what
So
you said. Sorry, I
let's
just
get,
need to touch
go
on that.
ahead.
I love what you said with like,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
no best singer. Oh, that is so
Mm-mm.
good. I wish people understood that.
There
I
isn't.
wish people understood that. I love that you said that. Anyways.
Yeah, well, I talked to, well, you
Yeah.
know Rosette. You girls are incredible vocal coaches, and we had a pretty good heartfelt dialogue about that. I just believe that, in all honesty, there isn't, and we harped on what's his face, Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan doesn't care, but yet he's one of the top-selling artists globally. So he's sold tens of
Yep.
millions of records globally. And nobody's going to tell him, well, you know what, Bob, I think you need to adjust your
Yeah.
little, you need to adjust your execution.
Yeah,
Your,
it was so
no.
funny. I once sent out an email to my email list and it was like Ariana Grande, Beyonce, and like all these other singers are not the best singer. And someone
Right.
answered the email and was like, "Well, I agree with you on this, but Ariana Grande, like she's the best singer." And I'm like, "You are so missing the point, but whatever."
You really are. It's all good, You let
Yep.
them grow on their own. Go, grow
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
You'll understand later on. But the last question of the show, and I love asking it, obviously, it's the theme of the show, which is what's your mojo, Laura? Like, what keeps you showing up even when you don't want to? You've done this a million times. You're dealing with vocal coaches around the world, sharing information, dealing with students that keep repeating the same mistakes. Like, what gives you the endurance on a daily basis to keep showing up, to coming on these podcasts and delivering the same messages over and over and explaining the differences between artists and singers and so on and so forth? Please
Ah,
indulge me.
I guess there's two layers to it. One is like I don't quit. Like if I say I'm going to do something,
Mm,
I'm going to fucking do it. And like to
right.
me, my whole goal at first was being an artist myself and I wanted to be famous in Hollywood and blah 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 blah. I realized that's not what I want. I want to help others and
Right,
I
right.
thrive so much more doing that. And so, you some people would say, "Well, you quit your career." And I'm like, "No, I refocused." Not the same thing. Not the same thing. And so,
Sure.
yeah, I
You
pivoted.
pivoted.
Yes. And so to me, like I'm just so strong willed where I'm like, if I want something, I will make it happen no matter what. And so
Good for
that's
you.
one side to
Good for
like,
you.
even if I have a bad day, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the work, because if you want to be successful, you have to do the work even if you don't feel like it, you know? So
Absolutely.
that's one aspect of that. But the other is nothing in the world makes me happier than seeing other, like seeing my students and other people see success and just see that aha moment, that light bulb moment.
I knew exactly where you were going. I was going to say the light bulb goes off moment. Like,
Yes, exactly. When was that? In September last year, I flew out to LA with my whole team. Like I have vocal coaches on my team, and we all flew out to LA to support one of our students who was playing at the Viper Room in Hollywood, and that's like, an iconic
mm,
venue. A lot of people want to play there and can't, or they
absolutely it
have to
is.
pay to play there. And they got invited to play there after
Right.
only having been in a band for like 9 months. And so it was just like
God.
going out there and supporting her made me so much happier than any success that I saw with my own career.
I
And so
get it.
just empowering
I get
people
it.
and showing them like, no, like this is what you got to do. And here, like, this is step one, this is step two. And, sometimes we got to go to step five to go back to step two. And it's like, it's not linear, like sometimes we got to do what
Right.
we got to do. But just seeing those light bulb moments and seeing these people success, like see success. Oh my gosh. It's just,
Well, this is why I have you on the show. This is why I created this podcast, because I couldn't find the answers to the questions that I
mhm.
was looking for. So I get incredible people in the industry to share their knowledge, and hopefully I could
Yeah.
serve my community and my ecosystem of artists with information that you're so graciously sharing from your own experiences. So I get it. There's
Yeah.
nothing more gratifying than seeing or living vicariously through the
Yes,
success of
exactly.
other artists.
It
It's just the
really
best
is.
feeling. It truly is. So I love that.
It really
Right?
is. It's not that I don't like standing on stage myself, or it's not like I don't feel confident enough to do it myself. I
Right.
do. I know I can. But it's just like, it's so much
Sure.
more fulfilling when at least a part of that other person's success is what you were able to give them, right? Not that I'm trying to take
Yeah.
full responsibility and full credit for
Yeah.
someone else's success. No, not at all. But I was at least part of that journey. And just like, I can't wait
Yeah.
for one of our students to win a Grammy and just be like, oh, I was a part of that. That's so
Right?
cool.
100%. I always use the example. I've performed, I've sold out arenas, but I've also performed
Mhm.
to the bartender, right? And you never know who's in the audience. But I've also helped other artists. Like, for example, I'm doing a show in Montclair for
Okay.
the School of Rock, right? And I get to see, they're asking me, Manny, you know what? I know you're going to perform tonight. Would you mind if we had some students perform that night with you? I'm like, dude, oh my God,
Yeah.
absolutely. So just to see the evolution
Mhm.
of these artists and know that you were a part of their growth. You were an integral part of their success, because you never know where these students are going to go. And you never know how you're going to touch the lives
Yes.
of these students. It has nothing to do with what you've done. Sure, it's
Mhm.
an influential factor, but when you assist, when you elevate someone else to reach their true maximum potential, that has nothing to do with your performance. That has to do with your
Yeah.
patience, your compassion. You're willing to empower, you know.
And you just don't know how far that ripple effect goes, right? Like if you
Yes.
positively affect someone, then
Yes.
they can positively affect someone else as well. So it
Right?
just keeps going and going and going and going. And
And that's
my
exactly it.
live motto that I live by, and my mom has told me this: be kind, no exceptions. And to me, it's just like I want to help as
Love
many
it.
people as I can, so that I can hopefully be a source of kindness and a source of,
Mm,
I don't know, knowledge
yeah.
and inspiration, so that they can forward that they can give that to someone else out there as well, to just bring
And I'll
light
add to
into the
that.
world.
Your
Yeah.
your mom is great. She reminds me of my dad. He said the same thing, and he said it doesn't cost you
No,
anything.
it
How about
doesn't.
that?
It doesn't. And if you don't have
And she
anything
sings
nice
it
to
too, so
say,
it's accurate.
yes. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And I wish some people on the internet would understand that.
Right. So listen, Laura, it's been great having you on the show.
Yeah.
This is the time where I'm going to ask you anything that you'd like to promote, what's coming up in the near future. Like share with us how do people find you and all that beautiful stuff. I know you've got a great masterclass that you've just released to the world. So talk to me about that real quick.
Yes, absolutely. So I just I have a new masterclass. It's called Singer to Artist Transformation. Yay! So it's a totally free masterclass. You can just go ahead and sign up. We have the links in our bio on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube, on TikTok, all these social media platforms under Vox Tape Studios. And yeah, I highly recommend that you start out with watching this free masterclass. It's about 40 minutes long, so check it out. And then we have, we have self-paced online courses that you can do. We do one-on-one coaching as well with myself and some amazing coaches at my team too. So yeah, get in touch and we'll set you up for success.
There you guys have it. You will be set up for success. And obviously, you could start by listening to this podcast, get an introduction to how amazing Lara is, and then take it to the next level, if you will.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you so much. It's been an honor having you on the show. Totally appreciate you sharing your journeys and your incredible knowledge and skills. Keep creating such awesome content. I love that. And that's the reason why I got you on the show. So it's very important to always keep creating. So thank you so much for your time, Lara.
Thank you.
Totally appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. I love talking about this stuff. So thank you for, sharing your platform with me so that I can spread the gospel.
There you go. And listen, we have to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Just call me and I'll be there.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Laura. We'll talk to you real soon.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye.
This has been a Mojo for Musicians podcast. If you're a musician, industry professional, or a voice with a powerful message and wanting to share your mojo and stories of success with our listeners, or simply share some feedback on today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email at info@mannycabo.com. As always, much love and peace. Live to inspire. Thanks for listening.